Hello and welcome to another episode of Front End Horse Live. I am joined by our good friend Kilian. Kilian, how's it going? I'm thrilled to have you back. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good. And you?
I'm great. I was thinking just a few minutes ago how you are actually one of my very first guests on a stream of any kind. So I actually met you because you put in a call for paper, or you put in a paper to a call for papers, or whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Back when I did like a mini conference at the start of the pandemic, and you were one of the people who applied, and I was so blown away by your paper and like what you came to talk about, and it actually is a similar topic here, right? Like
Yeah.
you touched on some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. But yeah, my friend, it's just been great to have you over these past couple of years. As someone who's just been around myself and then around the Front End Horse stream and community and everything, you're in the chat, you're in the Discord all the time. So just wanted to say, it's awesome having you around. So thank you for that in the first place.
Yeah. So I just also saw Nino Pepper saying my audio levels were different. I changed them. Are they
Okay.
better now?
It seems like they're better. Yeah. So if that's good, and thank you, Thomas. Appreciate it. I appreciate that feedback. Awesome. Perfect. So
Cool.
yeah, just wanted
If
to
it
say
can be
it's
even
been
better, just let me know.
cool. Yeah, just wanted to say it's been awesome having you around all this time. But yeah, we are. So for anyone who
Awesome being
doesn't,
around.
oh, I appreciate that.
Uh, it's a great community. So anyone that's in the stream that's not in the Discord yet should definitely join.
Yeah, it's always fun, and we've got some fantastic here. I see Travis, I see Thomas, I see Cynthia, and Aaron's here. Adrian, wonderful people already. It's gonna be a good show. For anyone who doesn't know you yet, would you like to give yourself an introduction?
Yeah, sure. I'm Kilian. I'm a web developer, so I do HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which is what I'm good at. Except I also build a web browser, which is kind of weird. But I do use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to build the thing because it's the only thing I know. This web browser is called Pane, and it's specifically for you guys, for people building websites. So essentially, anything I and everyone that suggests something can come up with that's useful for web development, I try to put it in this browser.
Yeah.
From media queries, which we'll talk about today, to like meta tag information, so you don't figure out you have typos in your description after you share your link on
Or that your OG
social media,
images aren't there,
to
or
accessibility
something.
with a whole bunch of checks.
I lost your video.
So like anything
Kilian.
I think of gets to be part of this browser.
Kilian, can you hear me? Oh, you are back. Okay, your video cut out for a second. I've got you back. So we're hoping that remains. And but
yes,
I think you defined it well. Like basically, it is a dream browser for developers, for all like tons of really nice shortcuts that speed up your workflow. Having multiple windows visible at once. Like we'll dig into it and use it today. I'm assuming, but yeah, can't say enough nice things about working with Pane. It's really fun. Like the developer experience is just excellent. So yeah, and on top of that, like beyond that, I know you as just someone who's very knowledgeable about a lot of things across HTML and CSS. You kind of said that you know HTML and CSS, but I find you to be incredibly knowledgeable. And the thing that we're actually going to be touching on, you wrote a robust, I think to put it lightly, guide about media queries. And I'll be honest, like
Yep.
when you first spoke to me about media queries, I and this was years ago. I was a younger, handsomer, but more foolish version of myself. I was like, all right, like media queries, I guess that could be a talk like about how to set like a min width and or maybe max width. Maybe Killian has an opinion on that, and that'll be the
I do.
talk. Okay, and that's it, right? Like that's all there is to media queries is what comes to mind. I think for a lot of folks though,
Mm-hmm.
but because like the phrase has kind of been so tightly coupled with like a max width or a min width, but there's a lot more
Yeah.
to it, right?
Yeah. So actually, even like it being tied to min width and max width is like relatively new
Okay.
for media queries. So they started out not being called media queries, but media features, because
Okay.
back before there was an iPhone, you know, last century, um, the idea was not that you would have queries, but that you would have specific style sheets for specific browsers. Like
Right.
much like the media print
Right.
media type, which is the only one that's left apart from screen, you would have things like media type of uh, handheld for handheld devices, or a media
Oh,
type of TV for televisions.
interesting.
Um, and essentially, they realized that none of that was ever going to happen. So, a media type of handheld had very limited support in
Hmm.
like mobile Windows and then like some Symbian phones.
Got it.
I know this because that's actually the first time I wrote something about media queries or media features.
It was back
Back in,
back for one of those phones.
yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Uh, so, uh, and of course, that was terrible. You couldn't really do anything. You could do less with the CSS on those things than in like IE3, IE4. Um, but yeah, so after that, uh, we're doing a history of. After that, the idea was, okay, we need to look at device sizes, because you have different devices and they have different sizes. So you had a media query for minimum device width, maximum device width,
Got it.
which worked for a while,
Right.
except that your browser doesn't have to be the same size as your device.
Right.
So if you're in a browser that's half your device wide and you check the device size, you still end up with uh, the wrong thing.
Right.
So then that's kind of deprecated as well. Uh, and then we get to just min width and max width. But there's also aspect ratio, and even min width and max width are actually derivatives of just width. So you can do a media query of width 500 pixels, and then that'll work if your screen is 500 pixels wide,
Precisely. Right. Yeah.
only 500 pixels wide.
Right.
Um, and then, after you, at the same time that there was like device sizing, the idea was, you could query like how many colors a screen has and how fast it
Oh,
updates. Um,
like the
and like
hertz or
all of
whatever.
that never
Interesting.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, more like what if you had e-paper that could only refresh like
Oh
every
wow.
second.
Yeah. That's
Um, and
these
then
use
all of
cases
that
feel so
really,
limited. That's so funny. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, and then even like you could get the number of colors. That's a media query that exists. But you
That's
can
funny.
also get the number of bits per color. So you can do like if it's monochrome or if it's 8-bit color or if it's 16-bit color. Like
Oh.
remember those CRTs where it was a big deal? Like we now have 24 million colors. It's 16-bit. It's amazing. Like
Yeah.
that. You could
That's
differentiate
funny.
between that and VGA.
Okay.
Um,
I'm glad to not be
but
developing during those times. I'm
yeah, but like
yeah.
even when this was introduced, like that wasn't really a thing
Okay.
anymore.
Got it.
Uh, but now we're at a completely different state when it comes to media queries, and with these new preference media queries, which you can recognize because they start with prefers dash.
Got it.
And they essentially tell you as a web developer or a website owner that a visitor would like to see your website in a particular
Way.
type,
Yeah.
thing,
Right. Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
that's what we'll be talking about today. So we'll
Cool.
skip over the VGA part and the device sizes.
Yeah, I know chat's probably furious right now that they came for the VGA settings, but that we're gonna be skipping on. I'm sorry, chat. Maybe we'll get Kilian back to do that another time. But yeah,
Mhm.
today we're gonna be mainly digging into reduced motion, forced colors, reduced data, prefers contrast, and maybe even a little bit of dark mode is my understanding,
Mhm.
right? To kind of give
Yeah.
chat that overview. But if you want to like really dig in, once again, this link to like the complete guide to CSS media queries is absolutely it's just so robust, and you've had it
Mhm.
up for a couple of years now, and you continue to like update it as things
Yeah,
get added. I see
I
you tweet
intend it
out.
to be an evergreen article.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's really useful. So yeah.
And so there's already a question. It starts with I wonder. So do you want to wait for that, or I can answer it real
Ooh.
quick right now?
Yeah, let's go for it. And thank you, because I've been the worst steward of the I wonder feature. So chat, like if you do exclamation mark I wonder, it will get saved here. But
Oh, there's no
in
exclamation mark.
yeah, it's got to be a Twitch command thing to get saved
Mm-hmm.
there. So I gotta teach it better. I've been dropping the ball for months now. But yeah, Thomas asks, I wonder if we can query some of those super new fancy color spaces with at media too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you can, but it's kind of limited. So the media query that exists is dynamic range, which will tell you if the screen is like a regular standard screen, like
Or
sRGB,
HDR. Got it.
or HDR, which is
Okay.
like a MacBook screen, which is P3, but there's other types of HDR as well. So that's supported from Chromium 89 or 99. So it's either here or it's gonna be here in 3 weeks. No,
Okay.
2 weeks.
Okay.
Um, so that will
See,
let you do that.
like what you just did already, like having the timeline of when Chrome. I have no idea what version of Chrome I'm on. I could not tell you, but the fact that you're like, yeah, it should, yeah, Chrome. See, Chrome
Oh
89
yeah,
came out
I
in
keep track of that, of
the
course.
summer of right, like I don't know. But yeah, it's very important to you and what you create, so that's perfect. And just so I'm clear, fancy new color spaces is like LCH and those other ones. Is that or are we talking about something else? Is that what Thomas means by
Um,
fancy new color spaces?
so probably. So
Okay.
those work in high dynamic range, but there's also another media query that I should mention there, which is color gamuts.
Okay, I don't know this one.
And color gamuts is already supported and will also tell you uh, if a screen, yeah, here we go. So it will tell you that the more specific type, which can be sRGB, which is normal,
Got it.
P3, which is
Okay.
the Apple thing, and then Rec 2020 is sort of like the hypothetical most amazing large color space that ever existed, except it doesn't really exist yet.
Okay. Despite the
So
year is what it seems like.
I so I
It might
I
not be a
looked it
year.
up
Yeah.
at some point, and I don't think it's a year,
Got
but
it.
yeah, it's kind of weird. But you
Yeah.
don't have to care because it doesn't exist realistically.
Real interesting.
But P3 is a thing, and I have to admit that I'm not quite sure if P3 will match like non-Apple screens. Like if there's like quote unquote certified Windows laptops with P3 support. That I don't
Interesting.
know.
Got it. Yeah, I haven't even heard about this. So thank you so much, Thomas, for asking this question, because I didn't know this was a thing. I thought yeah, I thought you just meant um yeah. I haven't been keeping as good of tabs on this kind of thing
Hmm.
as I probably should.
So
But that's
for
awesome.
the colors, those new color types,
Yeah.
the apart from the color function, the cool thing about those is that they will just use the available color space. So if you do like an LCH and you configure it to be the brightest green, you're just going to get the brightest green.
That
Um,
monitor can do. It's not going to like turn black if it's a touch
yeah,
outside of what it can
yeah,
appear. It's
yeah.
it
So on an
the browser's
sRGB,
going to
it
do
will
its
be,
best. Okay, cool.
yeah,
So it'll still be relatively
which
good
I
to
think is
good to
neat,
see.
but I think a lot of designers also will not think it's really neat.
That makes sense.
They,
That I can see it.
they'll want to use their specific color, but we'll see how that develops in the future.
That's gonna be fun. People holding their Pantone books up to the monitor and yelling at developers. I don't know what to tell you. But so now that we've kind of like laid the groundwork for what we're going to be talking about today, you kind of had the idea of going through the the thing that I'm most ashamed of under the hood, but the front
Yes.
end and the front end horse site to kind of see what things we can improve about it, right?
Yeah.
In terms of these specific categories. So,
Mm-hmm.
if you're not familiar, chat, this is the inside of Polypane. I guess this is where we will be working. And yeah, these are
Mm-hmm.
three different browser or views, I guess, that we can
Yeah.
have all open at once, and you can see as we do something on one side, it happens kind of all over. So it's just a really handy way to design or to code and see all your responsive views all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And then like the feature set is enormous in here. And these are some of the things we're going to be touching on. Ooh, I need to make the text size bigger, don't I? Where's
Yeah.
that, Kilian?
It's under view and then adjust text size.
There
Yeah.
it is. All right, cool. So I'm going to bump that up. Very nice. All right. So, yeah, as you're saying, prefers color scheme. We can toggle this. And front end horse does not have a dark mode. That's one of the things that we're going to be potentially looking at. And here's prefers reduce motion. And you can toggle it to change your preference. And right there is one thing that you spotted, right? So I just
Yeah.
toggled it and the image disappeared. So we're going to be potentially looking into that. And we've got, oh, and there's the color gamut thing we were just talking about. Really cool.
Yeah.
Screen and print. Yeah, really, really cool. So where do we want to start? You kind of threw the ball to me, but I just went back to the outline that you had sent me. So I'm not switching up too much. Um,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
I wrote down that we're going to touch on reduced motion first, if you're up for it.
Yeah, works for me. So let's. So what I usually like to do in Polypane if I'm doing this type of stuff is
Hmm.
to have two panes open side by side.
Okay,
And what I
so
usually do is like I'll close the mobile one,
okay,
and
how do
then
I? There you go. There, cool.
yeah, and then I'll click on the small tablet name,
Ah, got it.
and then switch that. If we scroll down in there to desktop and then the laptop view,
Got it.
yeah,
Cool. So I have
and
two
then
laptops.
I
Nice.
think you can press Command, no, Shift Alt R.
Nope, not on my computer.
Nope.
That
Okay,
brought
then
up
then we'll
NVIDIA commands, so I'm going to close
oh
those.
okay.
Ugh.
Then
I don't know how to get rid of
we'll
this.
just
Oh my
uh
gosh! I almost just ended this the stream. No, I don't wish to exit. I'm trying to close this NVIDIA. Just Shift
I'll
Alt R. Okay, it's gone.
no I'll stop suggesting
All good. All
shortcuts that
good.
I don't quite understand. So what we'll do is rotate both of these panes, which you can do in the top right of a pane. There's a little
This
yeah, mobile icon.
nice, cool, and I can maybe
And
refresh so
then
this one comes back if that makes sense. There we go.
yeah.
Cool.
And then zoom back in again.
All right. So that we've got him. That cool.
And then we can actually make them a little bit wider.
All right, nice.
You have a lot of space available, so you can
Yeah,
make use of that.
cool. All
Yeah,
right.
cool.
Now what do you
Um,
want to do?
yeah, so now we can go and look at the things that we can potentially reduce motion for.
Okay.
So we've already seen like the spurs, um, which um, which you already have reduced motion stuff for.
Right.
So what we can actually do in the right pane, we can turn reduce motion on.
Okay. So we'll do it here and
Yeah,
prefers reduce motion reduce.
yeah,
And
and
as you
then
found,
just yeah, but we can just refresh the page because uh, that does work. You just won't show the animation, which is works really well.
yeah.
Um, and then there were a few things I noticed uh, on this site. So you have the really cool hover over the titles and the letters bounce. Now, this is technically motion.
Right.
Uh, it's not huge motion and it's not sudden motion, so it's unlikely to be much of an issue,
Okay.
but we can still update
Reduce it.
this to
Yeah.
just be like a color change.
Awesome.
Um,
Or just, I mean,
or
like,
like
I'm
a
even
light
happy with nothing.
opacity, whatever
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. Yeah. And Mike's here. Welcome in. Good to see you. And I saw James in here earlier. Or I assume James is still here, but yeah, good to see you both. Yeah, so we can definitely touch on that. What about this? This is probably something that needs to
Yeah,
go too,
yeah.
right?
So this is pretty big motion.
Yeah,
So we can do two things. We can turn off the animation,
cool.
so it'll just pop, which is usually fine. Or we can swap out the animation for something else, like adding an outline or adding a border, so
Okay,
that it's still
got it.
clear that something changed,
Okay,
but we don't show a big or a big animation.
got it. And
And
then
then essentially that this happens uh, in all the other places as well. Oh, look, you do have reduced
do
motion there.
I do have
So
one
we can,
there. I wasn't as thorough as I
nice.
should have been, but
So
I
what we
have
can do
some.
is see what you did there and then apply it to the the feature cards, I think
Cool.
you call them, to the cards as
Yeah, I
well.
think so. Like blog cards or something like that. Yeah,
Hmm.
perfect. Yeah, and outline makes a lot of sense. And Jacob's here. Welcome in, Jacob. All right, so we can check this out. This is the very top secret front end horse site code. I'm just ashamed of it, so it's private. Oh, I can't see studio mode. Yeah. Charka, thank you for the follow. Welcome in. Great to have you. So let's see. We could either install the latest PowerShell or we could try to find these components. Let's try that first. So this is, I think it's is it masthead animation? Yeah, so we can look there first. Now,
Yeah.
chat, this is going to get messy and a little ugly. So just bear with me. Yeah, just bear with
We'll
me.
pretend it's all very nice,
Yes,
right?
there's some styled components.
Right,
There's
chat?
lots of weird styling and stuff. I know Mike is going to lose his mind about how I'm styling this stuff. Styled components. I'm not super clean with it, but anyway, enough me trying to protect my ego. Let's dig in and let's go for it. I'm curious what this is yelling at me for. No Babel config file. Okay, all right. I don't know. Anyway, we are checking this out. So prefers reduced motion. I'm using a
Yeah.
hook. Use prefers reduced motion. I might have sent you this specific hook the other day,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I think this is the same exact hook. So
Right.
basically, this hook, for chat's purposes, this hook returns whether or not that user prefers reduced motion. And you found, I think it was it was the add listener, remove listener bit, and that's what they're pointing out
Mm-hmm.
right here. Cool. So do we want to change that over?
So it honestly doesn't really matter.
Okay, because it's
So
still gonna
for the
work.
chat, um,
Whoa, hold on one
the
sec. Kevin Powell, how are you doing? Oh no, Kevin Powell. I just explained how my CSS here is going to be horrendous. But Kevin Powell, thank you so much. Welcome everybody. This is Front End
hey
Horse live
folks.
stream. We've got Kilian Valkhof with us here today. We are checking out something that is pretty fantastic, like pretty interesting. Media queries beyond just the like responsive for screen width kind of stuff. So we're digging into prefers reduced motion. What are the other ones? Forced colors, reduced data, prefers contrast. Digging into all that
Yep.
stuff. And yeah, Kevin, thank you so much for the raid. I've got to have you back on sometime soon because it was super fun having you on both times. Kevin joined us for the holiday special and it was an absolute blast. But yeah. Thank you so much for that raid. And yeah, we're digging into it. So we're actually looking through my site for Front End Horse, where let's see, where this has some good features. And thank you for these follows. Some good features where it's got motion on the left, but on the right, thanks to Pane, the browser that Kilian created, we have prefers reduced motion on so that there's no motion over there. So we've got that in some places. Some places were good, but just to catch you up, we're kind of going through and seeing what did we do here and how do we bring it to places where I didn't do a good job. And we need to add prefers reduced motion features there, right? So like we need to remove or change the way that this is animating to make it so that people who prefer reduced motion actually get reduced motion. So we got some. We're going to bring it to all, and we're touching on, as it says below, Kilian, reduce motion, force colors, reduce data, and prefers contrast throughout the stream. No worries, Kevin. Thank you. And yeah, we will chat and we'll make it happen. That's exciting. Cool. So, I have to go to stand up, dang work requirements. I'm sure you'll be back before we know it, Travis. Cool. So
If
we were
stand
just about
takes
to.
longer than a couple of minutes, you're doing it wrong. So
I think I
you'll be
think
back soon.
everyone's doing it wrong though, Killian. I mean, not everyone
Yeah,
can be on a one
that's
person
true.
team. I mean, I think you've got the benefit there. But we were checking out this hook. This hook is
Yeah,
working for all intents and purposes, but
yeah. So
yeah.
just like very quickly to explain why that's crossed out,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very cool feature that I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
But you use the window.matchMedia JavaScript API, and that used to have an add listener and a remove listener that you could add a function to that would be called whenever the match changed. However, add listener and remove listener are only used on window.matchMedia, whereas all the other APIs use add event listener.
Okay.
What they did is they said, add listener, remove listener, they're deprecated. You can now use add event listener and add a change handler just like you would on any other thing that can change. So they,
Okay.
they brought it in line with the rest of
All the
the
other
JavaScript APIs.
events.
Yeah.
Cool.
However, this already exists in the browser, so it's going to be available forever.
Got it.
And it still does the same thing.
Okay. It's just deprecated, but isn't gone. That's
Yeah.
helpful to know. Cool. And chat just asked, what is that theme? Looks very cool. So this theme, I believe, is the Free Code Camp dark theme. But you can see I'm obnoxious, and in the Front End Horse VS Code theme, I actually go in and I color the bars to be on brand. So here's like my settings.json that actually sets the bars because I like knowing when I'm in a project. So I set the title bars to be like on brand for that. But so yeah, we are basically pulling in a lot of refs because we're doing GSAP animation in a React component, and that can get. I'm not great at it, and I think this proves it in a lot of ways. But we kind of made it work. It does work. But here's basically where this happens. It's like the only place that this happens, where it's a use effect. So this runs when React hydrates in, and
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing in that array, so it shouldn't run again.
Yeah.
And it just checks to see if this is true. Then we do a reduced motion setup. Otherwise, we set up. I could probably be better about this being like a motion setup, but you get the point. Um,
This is fine.
cool. And then yeah,
So
we just bring everything in for opacity and we don't move it, and that's pretty much all it does. And then the rest is animated.
mm-hmm. So do you use that reduced motion boolean anywhere else?
Let's in this file, nope,
Yeah.
just these instances is
Okay.
all
So
it
then
comes
it
up
then it's probably GSAP doing something
on that.
there.
Like so, what we're talking about, chat,
Like what?
is
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure.
when we toggle it, it goes away, which is interesting. Yeah, I don't know why would that. Why would that be GSAP though? Oh, okay. Let's try it over. Oh, I was gonna say try it over here. It doesn't make any sense. It would be the same. But yeah, why would it disappear if that changed? I don't know. It might just default to what it. Okay, so it might fall back to before GSAP came in. I don't know what it can be,
Mhm.
because I know GreenSock doesn't have prefers reduced motion built in, and that's not
Okay.
because they don't care about it. It's because it has to be a decision made, right? Like you
Yeah.
can't automatically just say, all right, GreenSock, when you update to it, now
Mm-hmm.
if the user has prefers reduce motion as reduce, GSAP won't do anything, because that's not always the best option. Sometimes you just need GSAP to set it to opacity 1 and then it's
Mm-hmm.
done, because otherwise it'd be opacity 0, and right, like it can't just solve all use cases. So yeah, I'm not sure what's happening there. We might not be able to solve it and keep the stream interesting.
No,
it,
no.
it might be a
So
boring
like
bug.
what we might be able to do is bring that prefers reduced motion in the array for use effect. So the boolean
Ooh,
from line 19 added to the array, and then maybe that works.
yeah, that might work. So I'm going to run my dev server. I should have had that running already. But yeah, we'll check that. And that actually makes sense. It's weird that it's disappearing on us, but it does make sense that, like, okay, if this changes, we're going to run one of these
Mm-hmm.
again. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, as you said before, it's not the end of the world, where like no one is probably going to toggle it in the middle of a session.
Nope.
And if they do, it's not the worst thing to happen, right? Like the page doesn't
Again.
break
Yeah.
in any
True.
kind of like real way, but it's still like an interesting bug where it's like, all right, let's see about that. Is there a link to the repo of this? Cooler Me Purple, awesome name first off. This is a site that I'm not super proud of, like the code underneath, and so it's more it's a private repository, so that I don't have to like consciously think about like, oh, like I want to make sure that when I'm putting things out, I'm not stopped by wait, where's this open source? Well, my blog is closed source, so I want to make sure I'm not stopped by like worrying that I'm putting out bad code or that it's not perfect or whatever. I just want to write. And so I like the way Josh Como explains it, of why his blog is closed source. I believe with a lot of this, where like low friction and not worrying about like seeing like I don't want to put it out there and say this is a good example of a good site. I just want to ship fun articles that are kind of junky code wise, and not worry about it too much. So unfortunately, yeah, no, I appreciate that, Cooler. It's definitely more from my ego, 100%. I don't think anyone would ever be like, this isn't the right way to do it. Building development bundle, is that stuck? Hope it's not stuck. We'll see. But yeah, so no, it is not open source. It's the dream. Eventually, it'd be cool to get it there, but right now it is not. But if you ever have any questions about how I'm doing pretty much anything, happy to, share that code or talk about it or anything like that. because it's definitely not like ooh, okay, there we go. It's definitely not that I think it's so good that people will steal it. It's the entirely opposite thing of it's so ungood I'll never work in this industry again kind of thing. But not really. Okay, cool. So, okay, that was interesting. They're both on reduce. They both popped in. Okay, this might not solve it. That was weird. So if I
Well,
refresh,
so
it was worth trying. So they come in and then they leave, right? Oh, no. Did this one just come in and stay?
yeah.
Okay. So they're both okay. Actually, no, that seemed to work. I think just the first load for some reason broke. All right, chat, we might have fixed it.
I
That
think,
has animation. This one doesn't. And
yeah.
it works.
Awesome.
Cool. Thank you, Kilian. All right, Kilian's fixed my site. Now we can open source it. Now we can. No, so that was that one thing.
Oh, yeah, that was much easier than I anticipated.
Yeah, that was great. Cool. Aaron says, in future, you need to do some dev for your ID. For my ID. Finally, thanks, Kilian. Cooler Me Purple has been waiting for a while for this, so this is a dream come true for them. Cool. So do we want to hit some of these? Yeah, let's dig into this part because I'm actually,
Yeah.
if memory serves, this was kind of a fun problem to solve. So let's, is it splitting header? Yeah, this is kind of a fun problem. It's probably not a good way, and actually Kilian can probably help me find a better way. But basically, this component takes in some text, some classes. This whole site is Tailwind. It takes an element, so the default is just an H2, because most of these are used as an H2, so it's default. And then any props, I just spread them on the component. So I want to see where that text goes because the text thing was a little bit of a problem for me to solve. So if there's no text, return null. The header tag is the element that comes in there. And then we pass that to styled components. And styled components, if you're not familiar, is a way of styling things with CSS in JS essentially. And the way that you create like a styled div or a styled H2 is by either doing styled dot h2, or you can just pass it here, especially if you have like a custom component that you have to pass, like avatar, right? Like then you have to do it in parentheses. So passing like this makes a styled element of whatever we pass in, and pretty basic stuff here. But then we split on the text to make words, and then chars, we do a use ref. I'm relearning this code as I go. So words map, words split. So we split everywhere. So on each letter, and then each one of those gets a React ref. So I think we create an array of refs is what chars comes back as. Yeah, and then chars.current. So if we have characters, then we make a GSAP animation to animate in and animate out. I think those just go back and forth is all that is. I'm not sure why I have two. There might be a reason for that. Like I'm not sure why it's just like a bounce. So basically, like I think this is, how do I get off that? I think that's animate in and animate out, or the other way around, right? So like they just reverse each other, but I'm not sure why I don't just have one, but there might be a reason for that. Don't remember. But yeah, so we map through everything, we split them. And yeah, I think we just need to make it so that if we have prefers reduced motion, we do that in here, because this one keeps the scale the same and that's all it changes, right? Yeah, and no rotation. So we just block it there and then we should be set, I think.
Yeah, so I think what we want to do is import that use reduce motion hook.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just reading chat. I'm getting called out. I'm getting called out in a wonderful way. Aaron says, if I remember right, that text was not so happy in a screen reader. I think.
We can fix that.
Was it not?
Do you want to fix that real quick?
Yeah, let's check that out. That might take precedence. Good, good. All right. Thank
So
you for the
what you
follow.
can do in Polypane,
Um,
you go back to
cool.
Polypane and then hover over a title and then press the Alt key on Windows. Yeah, and then you can click on any of them because we need to go to the parent element anyway. So then scroll up to not to words but to the H whatever it is,
Cool.
and then at the bottom there's another set of tabs, and then we go to the LE tab, and then the accessible name there reads featured articles. So
Should
you
be
have
good.
already added an area label, and that should take care of screen readers reading the
Cool.
right thing. So
Okay, sounds
I
good.
think that already got added at some point.
Cool. Yeah, I probably did it after Aaron pointed it out, or maybe Ben helped me with someone in chat probably helped me, and Ryan called me out, and rightfully so. This whole show is Alex inviting people to help him fix his site. Basically, I mean that's been the entire thing: is come teach me web development, please, and we can let other people watch. Josh says, "How do I zoom in on the video?" So, oh, okay, never mind. I read that wrong the first time. I I thought the screen was wrong, but I read it in the opposite meaning. Cool. So let's actually do that. Let's bring in this hook. I didn't do it yet, but we're gonna pull that in.
Mm-hmm.
Import first reduce motion. Cool. Why is it's just yelling at me because I'm not using it? Nice. I can remove theme here. I'm not using that. And then we want to call it up here. If text return null, so we can do what do I do over here? Const prefers reduce motion equals prefers reduce motion. Perfect. And we might want to touch on for chat just so they're not only learning it in a very React focused way,
Mm-hmm.
right? But how we might do these kinds of changes if you're not using JavaScript for your animations, and
Yeah, so
that might be something. Yeah.
if you want, we can probably switch this out from GSAP to just using plain CSS.
For this bit, oh, what did I do? Okay,
Yeah,
nice. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think why did
if you
I
wanna.
if I want it. Is there anything to the bounce or anything? Thank you for the follows. Is there anything to the ease? No, I think the ease is pretty.
Yeah, I don't see any specific easing.
Yeah, weird because it feels like it has a bouncies. Or am I forgetting that? Oh, and look, it's yeah, no, there's no bouncies whatsoever. I think I was playing with and just left it in. Yeah, we can do
Mm-hmm.
that. And look, it's working. So what we did, chat, we just during the animate in part, which is what happens when you mouse enter, we just don't do
Yeah,
anything. We
perfect.
just return. So that was easy. Nice.
Nice.
We can switch it over to CSS, but I feel like that might be getting us off track because we've got a lot to
Yeah,
cover. So
yeah,
I think for
we can
now
just
we're
carry on.
good, not refactoring that part out. But I do agree
Mm-hmm.
it could just be a CSS animation for sure. So yeah, nice. That went well, and that's gonna affect all because it's a component. It's
Yeah,
affecting all of those
nice.
across the site. Um, those will still do the little bloop de bloop, and those won't. Perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then like just to reiterate, these were unlikely to cause any real issues,
Right, but these will.
because the transition was so subtle and it happened on a user interaction rather
Got
than,
it.
out of the blue.
Right.
Um, so if you did user testing specifically for the site, it might not have been flagged as a thing you should fix. But we're not doing user testing right now, so it's better to like err on the side of caution, rather than uh,
Then yeah,
figure
then
out
just
for
leave it.
someone else that uh, it's probably not bad enough. Um,
Right. No, absolutely makes sense. All right. There's a lot of see. That's one thing. Like I like Gatsby's image thing, but when you do like those image blur ups and stuff, it really makes your DOM
mhm.
not nice. So like that is like you can see this isn't loading in right because we're on our dev server and there's something some cache that needs to be cleared there. But it's a great feature to like get like, you know, nice
Mm-hmm.
images and then it fades in. But my goodness, does it make your
So they
actual
did recently introduce a thing, recently, like in the last year, called static image, which is
at Gatsby?
both, yeah,
Cool.
but it's like it's a new package from Gatsby, and it's both simpler for you as a developer because you can just point it at a URL instead of doing like GraphQL stuff,
Okay.
and it can do the
Oh,
blur up things, but it results in much smaller code still. So
yeah, the
the
new Gatsby plugin. Sorry,
HTML is
I know what you mean now.
okay.
Um,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
no, yeah. But yeah, I know, and I agree. I think I might be using it here. I don't know. Let me check real quick. Gatsby image. Gatsby image. So I haven't switched over entirely, so I'm still using both. And
Yeah.
yes, this is why I kind of want to get off of Gatsby in the near future. Like this is a lot of packages for a site that does very
Mm-hmm.
little. So like that's like but anyway, um we're gonna do the cards now, right?
Yeah.
Show card, event card, issue card, article card, I think is what that
I want to
is.
do all the cards.
All the cards. We're gonna do all of them. Um I,
And actually, if you scroll up a little bit,
yeah.
there's already CSS there, and we can just add a on line 14. So what we can do there is add a media query around that,
Cool.
and what we can do is do an add media uh, prefers reduced motion, no preference around these.
Is it prefers
So
that
yeah, you do need the colons or the parentheses.
around?
Yeah, parentheses,
Cool.
and then no preference. So yeah,
Cool.
exactly. Thanks, autopilot.
Right?
And then make sure to close that again below the focus one.
Okay, and that should
So
just
what
take
this
care of it.
does, yeah.
Or
So what this, you probably do need to
no,
reload.
there we go.
Yeah.
So we're getting the shadow
So
still, but not the rest. Awesome.
yeah, what this does is it sort of inverts the thing, which is what I think you should actually try to always do,
Okay.
which is make the default experience be without animation or without motion, more specifically. And then only when there is no preference for reduced motion, you add in the motion as like an extra layer.
Got it. Now, if if I haven't touched these settings at all in my browser, what do I have? What's the default coming out of the box from Chrome?
The default is no preference.
Okay, so this is going to be the default behavior, but
Yeah.
we're just not doing the reverse of reduce here and then
Mm-hmm.
changing it inside and doing like an unset or something like that.
Yeah. So the benefit of doing it this way is that if for some reason a user comes upon your site with a system that doesn't support reduced motion, but they do require reduced motion,
Okay.
in this situation, they get the reduced motion version.
Okay.
So we've essentially made the reduced motion version the default. And that's a good idea because it means that like the most accessible version of your site becomes the default,
Got it.
and then you add features to it as the user allows, essentially.
Okay, cool. Nice. Awesome. Well, we're making good headway, I feel like. I feel like I'm actually
Yeah.
going to have a decent site by the end of this. Um, but no,
So
this is
and
great.
what we can then do is
Should we drop that shadow
add,
too?
yeah,
Yeah, let me
that was
see.
is a
That
couple of
so
lines.
unfortunately that's in Tailwind. So once again, chat, this is a
Okay.
sloppy stew of code. I acknowledge it and I feel no
Do
shame.
you do you have the apply thing available in
I
the CSS
might.
bits here?
Yeah, so I'm using what's called twin macro, which kind of gives you a nice little escape hatch over styled components, but also Tailwind or not an escape hatch. It lets you easily use both together. Let's actually
Yeah.
see, because I'm sure they will. See css.com. Reduce prefers reduce motion. Let's see how they handle it. Motion safe. There we go. So this might be what we're looking for. Let's see what we do there. So, oh, what just happened here? Unknown runtime error. Okay, that seems fine. Okay, so we get a shadow here,
Yeah.
but no shadow here. Sweet, that was easy.
Cool. And then we also need to do that for the focus within
Ah, right.
in your
Yeah.
CSS.
Just checking to make sure that that's actually decent. Yeah, so I'm doing it on the titles there. I don't know if that's yeah, I see what you mean. And then we're getting that shadow there. Cool.
Yeah.
That focus might be better. You might be able to make that better. Cool. Motion steady, focus within. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. No, that's
And
perfect.
then what's left is to make sure that we add some other indicator, and that can be an outline. So
Cool.
what we can do, outlines, we can do an outline with an offset, and that will look very nice,
Okay.
especially in modern browsers. And I don't know how to do that in Tailwind, so I'll just
Yeah.
let you do that.
Let's actually find out, because I know they have some decent outline style. Like they have some decent ones here. They have this ring width one actually. So. How do you feel? Because I've seen this a couple times. How do you feel about using box shadows for focus rings?
So the reason people did that was because outline isn't wasn't very nice in a lot of browsers. So a box shadow will follow a border radius, but an outline won't follow or wouldn't follow the border radius. So you would always have a square around your element. In Firefox, for like 15 years, you also had next to border radius, outline radius, which was great, but they deprecated that. And then there were like a few versions in between where there was nothing.
Okay.
And now outline just follows border radius.
Okay.
So
Got it. So
using
it's
box shadow sort of predates from where outline radius supported or followed the border radius.
okay. Cool. Good to know. You've got the history, and it's fun. I appreciate it. So let's go outline maybe 4. Is that not gonna be? Am I making this up? This might be a new API. I might not have updated to the new one. All right, let's do it in regular CSS then. Let's skip the other stuff. So we want outline 4px solid, and then we want our red. I'm just gonna go red for now, and then we can get the oh, we want this on focus only though. So let's go that.
Yeah, so on hover and on focus.
Cool.
And then what we can also do is an outline dash offset.
Oh, do we want it on hover? I guess, right? Because it's for the
we want some indication that
okay, cool.
that the thing is and what we can do is we add an outline dash offset. We can sort of move the outline a little outside of the element. We can also try doing it a little inside of the element with a negative element or a negative number.
Got it. All right, I'm trying yellow and cool.
Oh,
All right, so we
that's
can
pretty
do.
nice.
Yeah, well, I just want to like be able to see it on the red. You know what I mean? Picking the red on red was not my most brilliant move. All right, we're gonna have some z-index issues there, and obviously now the yellow doesn't work on the white. But yeah, maybe we just stick to the outside. Would that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Outline offset. That's nice. Yeah,
And then
I don't mind that.
It does seem to fade, right? So that's something we need to prevent.
What do you mean? It
Is
seems
there
to
a
fade. Oh well, I'm not selecting. I'm hovering right now.
okay?
Uh, although okay, so here's the thing. I'm focusing on the inside, so the
Oh yeah,
outside
yeah.
doesn't
So
know
we
about
need
it. It
to
needs to know
we
focus in.
yeah
What's
we
the
need to
thing?
do focus within.
Cool. There we go. Nice. All right. So
Right.
now that the inside element is focused,
Yeah.
that gets the highlight. Now I think the
And
challenge is
then
going to be coming up with a
well, so
ring
we need
color.
to
Yeah.
do one more thing,
Okay.
and that is if you go back to your CSS
Mm-hmm.
right now, even in the no preference, we add the outline, uh, which is nice,
Got it.
but
We don't really want it.
probably not what you want. So no,
Right.
we're going to keep this because this is going to be the default.
Yeah.
But
We're
then
going to bring
in
the.
our prefers reduced motion ones, we're going to set the outline color to transparent.
Oh.
And I'll explain why.
Yeah.
We're doing a little bit of work in preparation for forced colors.
Got
Um,
it. I don't know anything about that, so I'm excited to learn. The force color
yeah,
thing
so
is
essentially
interesting.
what this does is even for the regular styling, the outline is still there. It's just transparent, which means you don't see it, so
Right.
it doesn't bother anyone. But when forced colors comes in, it will overwrite that outline color and it will become visible again for people using forced colors. So it will be a very clear uh, indicator
Oh.
for them because forced colors also removes box shadows. So
Cool.
we're doing work in advance to
Got
make
it. So we're
sure that
touching on the
it,
other one a little bit.
yeah.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So I think we should be safe
Mm-hmm.
grabbing our off-white color there. So let me actually
Sure.
do
So yeah, the only thing that
yeah,
we might not be able to fix right now is you do have the transition all
right.
uh, tailwind thing, which means that the outline fades in as well. Uh, which
So yeah,
again, it's
transition
not huge
shadow.
motion, so it's not that big of a problem. But if we can do like, yeah,
So let's
transform
transform.
probably.
Yeah. I think it's yelling at me because they're duplicated. Yeah. How do we apply multiple with that? Transform. Transition.
Transition.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if they have. How do you stack them, or how do you? I mean, is there a way to do that in a good way? Besides all, is it just like if you use two, you use all? Is that? I guess with
I
Tailwind, that's just how you do it. Yeah, so it might be that might be our issue. I don't know.
um yeah, so we can leave that for now, I guess.
Cool. All right. For now, that's just gonna stay. But yeah, I hope that's not too dramatic. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I can't speak for it. You know what I mean? Like I don't have a good sense of
I
it.
mean,
I ask. Yeah.
same. So
But yeah, let's go with outline. I don't know. I forget what our. Let's go. Let's actually check out the Tailwind config. Usually I would just use the variable, but for this,
mm-hmm.
it gets a little too sloppy. That's not Tailwind config. Off white. Oh, it's right there. Cool. And there we go. So we've got our solid. That should. Cool. That should
Yeah,
be good on any background we're using the card. I think they're only used on solid colors because
cool.
they're white otherwise. So that should be okay.
Yeah.
Nice. All right.
Okay, so I think we're done with reduced motion then.
Awesome. Love it. And just for chat, like there's probably other spots on the site. We're just handling the main page, uh, just so you know. And for some reason, the button sometimes disappears here, but it's not broken on the real site. I don't know what's going on. I always want to refactor this entire site whenever I like start digging into it, but I'm
Hmm.
like, no, that's I can't do it because I don't want to like stop shipping stuff. You know what I mean? Like to
Yeah.
stop and not put out articles and just redo the site and no one knows. I don't know. I'd just rather keep shipping and have this crappy, embarrassing code under the hood. That's the choice that I'm making in my life.
Hmm.
Cool. So we're done with reduced motion. Um, yeah, that was easy. We did it in both CSS and JavaScript. Well, kind of like CSS in JS and JavaScript, but
Yeah.
we hit it a couple different ways, and that was awesome. I'm gonna try forced colors now. We kind of talked about it a little bit, but
Yeah.
I really don't understand it. Can you explain what forced
Yeah.
colors
Sure.
is and why I might want
So
it?
it's easiest to show. So if you
Okay,
can close the panel,
this one.
yeah, just
Yeah,
yeah, and then turn forced colors on in the right pane.
got it.
So
Ah,
forced colors comes in two flavors, or actually it comes in a lot of flavors, but for emulation purposes, it comes in two. Not sure
okay.
if you can hear that, but my kid is protesting that she has to go to bed.
I mean,
But
I'm on her side to be honest. We're in the middle of a show. Your kids should be able to watch. I need all the viewers I can get, Killian. So I side with her. All good. We can barely hear it.
so oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
So what you can see happening here is that essentially it removed all of your styling that you spend a lot of time on, and it's gone. And um, instead, uh, it now uses a very limited set of colors. So
Yeah.
it literally forces the color scheme of your website.
Interesting. Yeah. So it seems like the
And
only
the
thing that
reason,
isn't black is links, and the links are blue, right?
yeah, yeah. So there's specific colors for text, backgrounds, links, and buttons,
Got it.
and we'll work with those in a bit. But the main purpose of forced colors is they essentially take a website that can be any color and they force it into a specific set of colors that a user has specified. So
Oh,
Windows comes with a bunch of themes, like the one you're looking at is the like the black on white theme, and they
okay.
also have a white on black theme. But you can also create like a sepia theme that does dark brown on light brown if you prefer looking at that, because that then like lowers the contrast. This full
Got
white
it.
is pretty bright, right? Um, so if you have, for example, poorer eyesight, then it can
Right.
be very hard to read like red text on white even.
Yeah.
So by like literally forcing the colors, you essentially tell your entire operating system like, I always want bright green on black text, or bright green text on a black background.
That's really interesting. Like theming the web for your own purposes. It reminds me a lot of like those reader apps, or like I think Safari has
Yeah,
one built in. Or
it's
like
kind of like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Okay. So what are like the gotchas that I need to look out for? You touched on one
Hmm.
earlier.
Yeah. So one of them is like they remove a lot of different styling. Like you can see, it still uses your fonts. Everything is
Right.
still in the same place, but your backgrounds are gone.
Right.
Your box shadows are gone. Uh,
So if you're counting on things like that to convey
yeah.
information
Um,
in any way, it's just gone.
mhm.
The images are still there. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Like
So
it's
the images are preserved because like they're content, and a browser always needs to preserve content.
got it.
But if you had, for example, text over images, and we can see that a little bit, but we'll go over that later. If you
Okay.
have text over images, your browser will detect that, and they will actually add a background to that text so that the text is readable. and it will put that
Oh,
background over the image. This is called a backplate.
that's
Um,
interesting.
yeah, so
Huh.
um, essentially, when it comes to forced colors, what you want to do is let go and accept that everything looks different now.
Just it's a
Uh,
trust fall of a
yeah,
setting, right? You just kind of, all right, it's
yeah,
got me. There's not much I can
but
do.
we still need to help it here and there.
Okay.
And these are like very tiny things. And the one we already did was the outline.
Right.
So because you have a hover effect with a box shadow and the box shadow gets removed, the
Right.
the hover effect is gone as well. But because we already have that outline, and even though it's set to transparent, it gets forced to the text color because of forced colors. So
Got it.
it's there
Yeah.
um,
And now
for
it's
for
scaling it
forced
up.
color
So
mode to use.
got it.
So that's like a very neat trick, and that's also why if you ever do outline none in your CSS, because you don't want like the ugly outlines around input elements, you shouldn't do outline none. You should do outline color transparent,
Got it.
because that will put those things back for forced color mode.
Yeah, it's funny. It feels like, oh, I see what you mean here. Um,
Yeah.
it feels like such a small, like what's the difference, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it matters here. That makes a lot of sense. That's cool. Yeah, so we're getting some issues when uh yeah, I guess it's seeing these as being over an image.
Yeah, so what is happening here is each element gets a forced background color.
Right.
Uh, and because you have a lot of elements here,
Yep.
like they overlap, and the background color overlaps the elements that you see, or that is like below that in the stacking
Right.
context.
So what can
Um,
we do? Can we
so
increase
yeah,
the
before
line height?
we go
Okay.
to that,
Cool.
a cool thing you can do is you can now in the emulations pop up also switch the preferred color scheme.
Okay. Where's that?
That's the top one.
Oh, cool.
And
Ah.
the browser actually also comes with like a dark mode. And what you can see here is that, the links were blue, and you thought that was because, default links are blue. But
Right.
no, that was like a theme specific choice. And that
Huh.
theme specific choice won't always carry over to other themes. Like it won't always be
Got
that links are blue. Links are the color that the person that turned force colors mode on chose.
got it.
And they can be like yellow, they can be dark gray, they can be anything.
Yeah, there's a placeholder here
So
that's green. That's funny.
mhm.
That's really
So
cool.
what we want to do here, like as a list, is we need to fix that background for the title. We can add some borders where there were backgrounds first. So if you look at the left side, there's the hero part, and then featured articles is its own section. And we know that it's its own section because it has a different background color.
Right.
But the background color is gone.
Right.
Or it's not gone. It's all the same background color now. So there's no difference there anymore. The way you solve that is by adding borders to stuff that used to have a background color.
Interesting. Got it. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. So let's find that. So this is just a very simple component that
Yeah.
just wraps around a version of a component and just passes a lot of specific text. So both this and this kind of have the same component at their
Mm-hmm.
core, just get a lot of different props. So it's not a great abstraction, but it's a small abstraction. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, we can on the article display component clean out some of this unused stuff. Oh, whatever, I'll leave it. We can Add a border is kind of what you're saying, right? Like a top and bottom border,
Yeah, yeah.
but only. So are we only doing it? Or oh, is it transparent? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, we can do that. We can do a transparent border.
Okay. Do we need to, so I'm kind of asking, do we need to do a media query so that only if prefers, what is it? No, sorry, forced colors.
Yeah,
Only if forced colors, then we show this
I think that
thing.
would be, yeah. So that
Okay.
would be nice for this specifically because then we only add like the spacing in forced color mode as well.
Got it. Would it be cool if for just for now, so I don't have to refactor this a bunch because I'll have to
Yeah,
like pull
sure.
this out and everything. Could we do it in the DevTools? Could you walk me through
Yeah.
that?
So um, if you go to the Live CSS tab here,
Life CSS. Oh,
uh,
live
at
CSS. Got it.
the top,
Cool.
yeah, and then where it says all panes, you can click on it and then go to the bottom one.
Okay. Oh,
Um,
someone from Prismic, it might be Lucy, I'm not sure, asks, do outlines work too?
yeah, so they can work. However, this element is a full width element, and
Okay.
you can add a top border, but you can't add a top outline. An outline is always around the entire element. So
Good
I
point. Got it.
think it's neater to do a border in this situation, but you can also do outlines because they'll
Right. That's what we're doing
um,
here. So
also do that.
cool.
So what you can do now is click the little arrow icon right. Yeah,
And just, am I getting
yeah,
it? So it might just have, because it's only uh, Tailwind. I might need, here, let me do this. So I got, I'm just going to give it a class of article display. Oh, cool.
sure.
So we've got that. So now should we just write it on that?
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Just like that. Cool.
yeah. And then we can do a border top, 2 pixels, and then solid, and we can set a color here, but that won't actually be used
Got it.
because it gets replaced.
Right.
So if you want to be specific about it, instead of red, you can write canvas text. So canvas like the HTML element, and then
Right.
text.
Is that all one word
So
or?
one word, yeah. So what this is it's essentially a color name that
Okay.
references whatever the text color in the browser is right now. So force color sets a fixed color for text, for links, etc. And you can target those specific colors with keywords. So canvas text is regular text, and then canvas is the regular background. We can also make this the color of links. So instead of canvas text, we can do um, link text. And
Cool.
now that's like yellow, but you
Yeah.
shouldn't do this
Right.
because it's
It's
confusing.
confusing it.
So you
Yeah.
most likely just want to be using canvas text.
Wow.
And there's a few of these that map to like properties. So there's canvas text for regular text, there's links, there's gray text for disabled, there's button
Got
text
it.
for button, along with button face for the background of a button. And then there's also highlight text for highlighted text because that usually has like a different background color.
So, but just so I'm clear, this is only stuff for forced colors, right? This isn't stuff that I've been like
Yes.
not okay. So I'm like I'm sitting here
However,
wondering
they
like
it,
yeah,
it does just work in on a regular site as well. You can just write canvas text and that will
really
show the text in, black most of the time.
interesting. So it should be working over there also, all panes. So I should see it's like blue. Does that? Hmm. I should see it there, right?
Yeah. Uh,
Let me
it could
refresh.
be if you, yeah, just reload real quick.
Got it. Okay, so we see it there, and then canvas text. It turned black.
Yeah,
Yeah. Weird. Okay. Cool. So, but obviously, like I don't. But how do I get it to stop from showing up there? Lucy, thank you for
yeah.
the
So
Prime sub. Really appreciate it. Thank you so
this
much.
is this is where we can do two things. You
Okay.
could do a border top color of transparent,
Okay.
but that's not ideal because then the border is there. So
And it
this is where
changes the
we actually,
size of it, even if it's transparent, right? Cool.
yeah. So this is where we just like wrap the media query around it. So that's add media parentheses forced dash colors colon active.
Cool. And then there we go. And we get it on the right. We don't have it on the left.
Mm-hmm.
Neat.
Yeah.
That's really neat. And that's such a great tip of like, yeah, showing some separation, showing that this is a
Mm-hmm.
new section.
Yeah.
Really cool tip. You could even do it there, but like that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. And then we can also do that for the newsletter sign up because that's like on the regular site. That's
On
like
here.
its own
Oh, up
little.
here.
No, at the bottom
At the bottom. Cool,
of the
cool.
page. I mean, we can also do it for the subscribe button. We can get to that as well.
Yeah.
But
All
yeah,
good.
what you would do here is then, whatever that element is,
Yeah.
uh,
So
in
I
the
think you can
subscribe
pop this one
form.
actually in here. So, because I'm using that twin macro for this one.
Mm,
So, uh, this should be able to just, we'll take this part out. I think we can just do this. Let's see if that works. Maybe not. Did that work? Yeah, yeah, there we go. Cool. Just need to give it a sec. Nice. Easy as that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't show up over here because it's behind that media
Mm.
query. Really cool. Oh, and
And
you can
then
see I've got like
there's
a border top there and it's turning it white.
yeah, and
Nice.
that's fine. That's what we want, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's perfect.
Now, if we
Very cool.
scroll all the way down,
Yeah.
then you can see your social media icons here. And like we could add a border for that blue bar as well, but I don't think it's really needed. But
Yeah.
the icons are white, not because of canvas text, but because the icons are white. And that
Yeah.
means they're now shown, but if you switch back to prefers color scheme light, they disappear.
Oh, wow. Great catch. Okay. Um,
And that happens because there is a fairly recent change in the way current color is used, which I think you're using here
yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm
for
using current
the
color. Yes.
SVGs. So for current color, it needs to be calculated what the current color is. Like it needs to go to its parent elements and then figure like what is the color. And that needs to happen at some point in the rendering process.
Right.
And what happened was the order of that rendering process, the specification for that changed, and browsers implemented that. But it meant that the current color was determined before the forced colors replaced all the colors. So if you use current color for SVGs at the moment, it will use the actual specified color instead of the replaced forced color. Now, this is a bug, and the
Interesting.
spec has already been updated, and it
Okay.
will be fixed in browsers as well.
Okay.
But for now, it's not. So what we need to do for these icons specifically is, again, overwrite that current color with canvas text.
Got it. Okay, that's gonna be interesting. Let's see. So that's my what component is that? Um, let's see. Discord. Trying to think. I don't know offhand what component that is. Is it just called footer? Yeah, it's footer. All right. So we've got these icons. Where are my icons? Here we go. So Font Awesome, Discord. I think those
Mhm.
are coming in from React
Yeah.
icons. I'm pulling in Font Awesome icons from React icons. If we
Yeah.
dig into
So what
those,
I think is what happens is they just use current color
Right.
because that's in those components. So what we can do is on these links, they have a class name, social link style.
Yeah, that's this. And then, yeah, so there's social link styles. There's just a few Tailwind classes there.
Mm-hmm.
Hover text lucky. Yeah, so it changes from the default, which I think is what's being set by the parent. No, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
that's background. I don't know where it's getting set to white, honestly. Might be further down. Yeah, it looks like in here. Yeah, so that's where it's getting set to text white. Do we want to change it here?
So we can probably just add a custom class here and then head over back to Polypane.
Okay, cool. So just on the span here. So
Yeah,
I don't really think icon row, not great, but let's go footer
good enough.
icon row. So at least
Sure.
it's scoped and not potentially catching something. All right, so should I keep the force colors active bit?
Yeah, yeah. We
Cool.
can just keep all of this or
Okay.
overwrite it. That's okay
Yeah.
too.
Cool. Cool. So we're doing color
Yeah, and
canvas
then
text?
yeah, but I think we need to update the selector so that it targets the A element in this class.
Got it.
So we can just do footer icon row A, and there we
Cool. All
go.
right. Yeah,
And
perfect.
then the hover is still the text lucky, which is fine. Like we could fix that as well, where the hover color is actually like the link text.
Right.
Actually, this should be the link text, right? Because
Yeah, I was
it's
thinking,
linked.
shouldn't just the color itself and not even hover link text for
Yeah.
all of it? Yeah, that works. Nice. I'm curious now if let's see. What is it? What is it? Forced. They don't seem to have it. That's a shame. Interesting. Well, gotta follow PR then, I guess.
And then, so
Yeah.
what we can do now is we can go back to that header with the overlapping. Uh,
Yeah, this, but oh,
yeah,
where is it? Where am I going? This.
because here we actually need to do something weird.
Okay.
Because in forced colors, there's no way to remove that background color. You can't say like background color is none. Is that'll just be ignored because that's the whole
Makes
point of
sense.
forced
Yeah, makes
colors.
sense.
However, there is an escape hatch for forced colors.
Okay.
There's a CSS property, forced colors adjust,
Okay.
which you can set to none. And if we can do that uh, for those spans, like if you can go back to Polypane
Yeah. Sorry.
and then click that inspect button in the live CSS panel again, and then just click on the on a span. I think it has a fairly unique class, something we can
Um,
use.
doesn't look like it. Char 0 to 5. Let's see. Inspect. Yeah, I don't think the classes are very unique. Um,
Yeah, but we can do it on .char.
okay. Cool. Live CSS. Ooh, I just double clicked it and it copied it to my clipboard. That's cool.
Yeah,
That's neat. All right.
yeah. So we do want to do this in the media query as well.
Cool.
So we're going to add a property here now called forced colors adjust, and then we set it to none.
Okay.
And nothing happens now
Right.
because we're in an emulation in Chrome or in Chromium that's kind of beta level. So
Okay.
if you now hover over the icons or hover over the numbers,
The
the
numbers.
letters,
Okay, like this.
yeah, then they should be become red. They became red for me.
I'm probably doing something wrong
Um,
though. Um, yeah, is this, am I allowed to? Yeah, yeah, I'm not nesting. I'm
yeah.
just in a media query. Yeah, I'm not sure. Interesting. Force
Well, maybe,
colors adjust or force color?
Oh yeah, forced color. I said that wrong.
Cool.
Yeah.
All good.
So now, yeah.
Oh,
Okay, so make sure you get
interesting.
them all. Um,
I can't get those
and
last
what
ones.
what
That's
this
so funny.
does is it disables forced colors for this element specifically, which is kind of useful
That's funny.
because if you have, for example, an e-commerce website, you're like, you can pick these colors for your t-shirt, and then all the colors get overwritten. That's
Yeah,
not a great experience, so
got
you
it.
need to disable that.
Yeah, you
But
can see I've already run into trouble.
yeah, so here's the tricky thing we're going to do now, because
Okay.
even though we've like disabled forced colors, we're going to
Right.
put them back by setting the color to canvas text.
Oh, but that
And now,
removes the backing.
yeah,
Got it. So there is a way, but it's a roundabout way of
it's
like
a very roundabout
we're
way.
ejecting out of the force color for that element, and then we're opting back in for parts of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Funny. Oh, that's cool. That's a really cool trick. I just hope people use it for good and not for evil, Killian, because I feel like
Yeah.
this is
So
gonna
you
be.
should use this. You can put this on the body element, but you definitely shouldn't. And
I have a feeling. You know what I mean? Like, oh, if I ever see
but like
this,
it's important to know that that escape hatch does exist, and like we actually found a legitimate reason to use it right now.
right?
And those exist, and like there are situations where a specific color is important for your website and for the understanding of your website.
Yeah, that
So
makes sense. But it being your brand color and people needing to see the purple that you
that's
chose, that's not a good
no.
one. That's not. Yeah, just to make that clear for when your PM or your CEO or whatever comes in and that's just yells at you. I mean, first off, the kind of beauty is that they're not going to know about this feature, right? Like,
Mhm.
but it's also
They
like
know about it, and
it's a
they're
gift
not
and a
going to harm.
curse in that like yeah like it's also going to be tough to advocate for it. You know what I mean? Just because they don't know about it. So like if you're like I need a day to fix these issues, right? They're gonna probably go no.
I have two things to say about that. Um, so roughly 4% of Windows users have this feature on, so that's
Awesome. That's substantial.
considerable.
Yeah.
And we just essentially fixed the entire site for forced colors in like 30 minutes.
Yeah. It's a really good point.
So it's the great thing is there is not a whole lot of stuff to do for forced colors to make it work correctly. There's like tiny little things like make sure the icons show up, make sure the backgrounds don't overlap stuff, make
Right.
sure there's borders where there used to be background images
Right.
or
And
background colors.
even with this, like this wasn't like
It wasn't super broken.
right.
No.
Like it's not great, but it's just some descenders getting cut off. And
Mm-hmm.
in the grand scheme of things, like it could be way worse. But still, yeah, you're right. Like I've never looked at this site in forced colors, and it took us a very short amount of time with you explaining it every step of the way. So that's awesome. Yeah, I'm on board. I like it. Cool. So we hit forced colors. Is that all we're doing with forced colors for now?
Yeah, I think so. I
Cool.
mean, like you could always like add more stuff. Like the subscribe button could have a like a button face background color and a button text color. But now it also works. It's pretty clear where the button is
Cool.
still. So you can always do a little more.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we made something workable in a very small amount of time, and
Yeah.
I think that's the idea.
Yeah. I really got to bring my colors back though. We gotta do that. Perfect. Awesome. So now we want to move on to prefers reduced data, or is it
Yeah,
just reduced? Is it prefers?
it prefers reduced data.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when I explain this one, I mean, like, I think the name is pretty good. I think it's like kind of self-explanatory, but would you mind
Mm-hmm.
walking us through this one a
Yeah,
little bit?
sure. Yeah, so first of all, this media query isn't yet supported in any regular browser, but work is happening on it. Um, so you can expect it to be here like relatively soon.
Okay.
Uh, and the neat thing is we can add stuff for prefers reduced data now, and it won't work, and that won't matter. And then once support lands, your site will magically get faster for people that do
Got it.
have reduced data needs.
Got it.
So
So,
you can have reduced data needs for like a variety of reasons. Like you could just have slow internet,
hmm.
but you could also have a data cap.
Right.
Like you only get a few megabytes or gigabytes per month.
Right.
Or you could have very spotty internet where you would rather have like a diminished experience than no experience.
Right.
So and it's important to realize that it's not just like outside of the Western world where this is a problem, because you can be in public transport and between stations, and you would have no or spotty internet. You could be at a conference and there'd be 500 other folks also trying to, refresh Twitter every 20 seconds.
Yeah.
So
Or see
there's
the conference website and the conference organizers wanted to put a full video on there that's 5 megabytes and you have to, right? And so it's just like, all right,
yeah.
guess we're all gonna sit here and wait for that to
hmm
load. Yeah, so
So
I know what you mean.
a lot of people look at this and they think, I have unlimited gigabytes internet, so whatever. It doesn't affect me. Doesn't really matter. Everyone I know has high speed internet. That's true, but it's not always true,
Yeah.
and it's important to realize that even like it's a very common thing in accessibility, or in inclusive design. Like everyone is going to experience a disability of some form at some point in their lives.
Yes.
It
Yes.
might not be permanent. It might be situational rather than permanent or temporary. Like where I sit, I have a very large window here. So in winter, there's just like a couple of hours a day where I can't really see my screen because the sun is shining right at it.
Got it.
This is why I have, as one of the few developers, dark text on light background color scheme for my code editor, because that does have, that
Oh.
sends enough brightness to
Yeah.
counteract sun, and
That's
I can still
funny.
code.
Got it. That makes yeah, makes a lot of sense because yeah,
And
I'm
and
not a
like
fan of
the
that either,
same
but
for reduced data. Like you might not need it now, but you're gonna need it at some point, or
yeah.
you're gonna wish it existed at some point.
I wish it was just a toggle in every browser. I could just be like, nope, give
hmm
me just the bare minimum, please. Um,
Yeah. So actually, there, even though prefers reduced data doesn't exist yet,
right.
there is a toggle you can set in some mobile browsers
Okay.
that will send a header called save data.
Oh.
Uh, so it's an HTTP header called save data, and it can
Okay.
be on or off. And that is also a way people can request reduced data. And it's very popular in, for example, India, where 25% of Android phones send that header.
Interesting.
Um, and so there's a clear need for something like this
Yeah.
in a more
Oh
accessible
yeah.
way, because headers are awesome, and it means that you can instruct your Nginx to send an entirely different website. But if you're a front-end developer, you're probably not going to be able to do that. Like you're not going to be able to change an Nginx config or update the Django routing to whatever based on the header, or it's
Yeah. I
very
don't want to.
complex, and it's and you don't want to,
Don't want to.
exactly.
Yeah, just don't want
Just
it.
like this is stuff we don't touch.
Yeah.
And having that in a media query is much more accessible and much easier to deal with.
Yeah. That's awesome. Andre, welcome. Good to have you here. And yeah, chat, like I think we can all kind of agree with that where we've all had an instance where we wish we weren't downloading that like 3 megabyte video to see what this restaurant had on their menu, right? Like I don't care. Just get me to this stuff because I'm on like oh, wait, they're retiring 3G. I know that's like way off topic, but I hear 3G is going away. I just found that out. I don't know, but that's that's a whole other thing. We'll talk about that in the Discord maybe. But yeah, that I've heard is causing some issues. But anyway, how do we do a request for or a media query for reduced data? Is it like okay? I'm gonna take a shot at it.
Yeah.
Media prefers reduced data and then color blue, right? Like obviously this is what we would do. We would maybe
Hmm.
like how would you just hide images or like would
Yeah.
display none do the trick
So
for
if
just not downloading
images
that?
are only downloaded when they are shown, so you could do that. So you could use it to hide images and to uh, hide backgrounds. Uh, like a tricky thing there could be is if your website preloads images like Gatsby,
Got it.
then the image is still going to be preloaded even if it's not shown. So
It's because it's in the
that's
HTML.
yeah, that's a little iffy.
Yeah.
But you could also make sure that instead of downloading your very fancy font, that might be like a few hundred kilobytes, you just fall back to the system font.
Right. That's a good
And
point.
there's ways to do that with like font display swap, where uh, if the download takes too long, the browser is just like, we're going to use the system font. So we get some text on the screen instead of having to wait for an empty screen.
Got it.
But that means that the font file still gets downloaded. So what you really want to do is prevent that font from being downloaded, and you can use prefers reduced data to do that.
Would you put like
Um,
the font face inside a media query? Can you do that?
no, so the fonts only get downloaded when they get used. So you can have all your add font declarations like anywhere, and then
Got it.
if in a media prefers reduced data, you just overwrite the font family of the elements to like system UI
Yeah.
or whatever fallback fonts you have,
Right.
then that will work because the font only gets downloaded if it's specified in a font family of elements that's being displayed on the page. Browsers are really sophisticated.
That's cool. Wow. Yeah, it's amazing what they can figure out and not load for us, but
Yeah, but
we need
so
to
that's
help out.
also why we do need like prefetch and preload stuff
Got it.
because to speed things up. Because the
Right.
browser will only start downloading that font file if it has downloaded the page, then downloaded the CSS, parsed all the CSS, figured out like where does which CSS
Yeah.
apply, and oh look, there's a font. Now we
Let's go
download the
ask
font.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes
So
sense.
there, yeah, it's choices you have to make. There, like, do we preload it or do we make sure that it works for prefers reduced data? I don't think
Yeah.
there's really a good solution for that yet.
Interesting
Um,
though. That's really cool.
There will be sort of
Okay.
because uh, all these media queries will soon also be things that you can request as a server through the headers.
Nice. So kind of like they
So
do in the example that you gave.
yeah, so
Got it.
like the
Save
save data
data.
on header,
Cool.
uh, there's a new specification for headers where a server can like very specifically pre-request whether you have dark mode turned on, for example.
Wow.
And then the
Okay.
server knows that instead of the website knows that. And if the server knows it, they could, for example, send only the dark mode CSS rather than like all the CSS and then choosing on the client side.
That's wild.
And reverse reduced data is part of that as well, but it's not here yet. And there's like privacy concerns, so I'm not sure when that will be available.
Got it. That's really interesting though. And so is that kind of what you're talking about with potentially getting into a dark mode as a media query, or is that more the prefers color scheme dark mode, or I
Yeah, yeah.
forget.
So
Okay,
yeah, so
cool.
he
So
prefers color scheme.
we'll
Yeah.
touch on that. Cool. Cooler Me Purple asks, and this might be one for the chat, just because I'm not doing this as much anymore
Hmm.
since I switched to like a couple tools that I can mention, but just what CLI tool do you recommend for reducing image sizes in general for all image types like GIF, PNG, JPEG? So like, I'll definitely let Kilian take this
So I
if you want.
think ideally what you would do is you would have your server take care of this. So if you use Gatsby, if you use Next, if you use like 11T, they all have stuff that take your PNG, compress it, creates like WebP and an AVF and all these things, all these different formats at different sizes. So you get like a package of like tiny to super large images in like 3 different formats, and then the browser downloads the one that fits best.
Yeah.
So that's really the easiest way. And then in terms of CLIs, I'm not very up to date because I do use tools that do this for me.
Yeah.
I know ImageMin is one.
Okay.
Many years ago, I wrote a GUI tool to compress images called Trimage. So you can
Nice.
still download that on Ubuntu. It's part of Ubuntu and Debian and Arch and a bunch of
Like
other
it's built
Linux
into
systems.
the OS.
Or it's
That's
it's in the
cool.
package managers. Yeah,
Wow, that's
that
cool.
was a lot of work to get done.
Oh my
It's
goodness. Squoosh.
very
Yeah.
different from web development.
What Adrian touched
Yeah.
on, Squoosh, is one I
Hmm.
sometimes use if I use that for my newsletter because I don't have the same benefits of like the
Hmm.
website, right? Like the website can't do it for me. So I need to get like the images as small as possible. Cooler Me Purple, what I would recommend is Cloudinary or ImageX in terms of like just an image CDN. You toss it up there, you get to transform your images with. Actually, our friend Alistair was on Ben Meyer's stream the other day talking about this kind of stuff where yeah, you can just pass in a query parameter at the end, like W equals 300, and that sets it to 300 pixels, and it gives you automatic like AVIF or WebP or whatever the browser can handle. It's so nice just not worrying about any of that, just offloading that to something like
Hmm.
Cloudinary. Yeah, ImageX is great. You need to pitch it to your company. Yeah, highly recommend ImageX. We use that under the hood at Prismic, so big fan. Yeah, it's nice. So those that's how I would go.
Yeah.
But so we touched on
Yeah.
reduced
Like
data. Yeah,
abstract that away.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you want to abstract that away where you just have an image and someone else creates the best possible version for
Yeah,
every visitor imaginable.
yeah, exactly. Because like it's already a pain in the butt when I had to do the widescreen and the normal and the tablet and the phone. Like remember those
Hmm.
days of going to Photoshop and making
Yeah.
like the 4 different sizes or whatever you did, and now it's like oh, and you have to handle WebP and JPEG and like all these other
Hmm.
ones. It's not worth it. And then like if your editor wants to upload something, right? Like hey, I have a new blog post going up. You're like, all right, hold on, I'll open up Photoshop. Great, like it's just not it's not a good thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's better times now.
Yeah. Here's my 20 megabyte raw file that I try to upload in the CMS.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. Cool. So prefers contrast. What's this one?
So just like you skip over this, but we don't have anything to show for reduced data because
Oh,
this
sorry.
website is already super well optimized.
Okay.
It's very small. Like there is a custom font, but that custom font is like 40 kilobytes.
Okay.
So that's not going to make the difference. Um, like the only way we could make this site faster is by rebuilding it in something that doesn't run React on the client,
Right.
um,
Is
which
there any
we're not
Eleventy
going
fans
to
in
do.
chat? Maybe I don't know. There might be some Eleventy fans around. It's hard to say, but yeah, we're
Yeah,
not
so
going to do that for sure. Not
no,
today.
we and that would then save like the React runtime, which is I think 100 kilobytes.
Okay.
But all this site is like 1.7 megabytes, I think it was.
Got it.
Um, and that's really, it's very small and the site is very fast. So
Cool.
there isn't really a lot we can realistically point at here and say, we can definitely make a difference in reduced data.
Well, I'm glad you're holding to the contract that I had you sign before you came on, saying that the site is really good and fast. That's you nailed it. You'll be getting your end of the deal, so thank you. Um,
Excellent.
you read it word for word. I appreciate it. Um, cool. So yeah, and so like one thing we could do potentially, like like there's lots of things you could do, but like either sending a much smaller image here, right? Like you
Mhm.
swap this out and you send maybe one that's not in 5 different pieces, right? Because that's stuff that isn't as
Yeah,
optimized, right? But like it depends on how much work you want to do to optimize out a few
yeah,
KB here
and
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 there.
so I think these are PNGs, and you could see what happens
Yeah.
if they're WebP because
Right.
that has good support nowadays. Um, but it wouldn't make a huge difference for this website.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like if there was a big video playing right here, I think that's like the perfect example, right? Like big
Yeah.
video, masthead kind of thing. Just
hmm
kill it in the prefers reduced data. So I think that's
Yeah.
the
So
classic
what you
example.
would want to do for video specifically is you can have the video there because even with reduced data, someone might want to watch the video,
Okay.
but
Yeah. Good point.
make it their choice. So
Got it.
use
Yeah.
JavaScript to make sure that there's not like a preload attribute and not an autoplay attribute, because both of those will download the video before a user actively chooses to. So instead, like you can have a video element, just don't add like autoplay or preload attributes to it, and you're good.
Cool. Cool. Yeah. And that's just like a good rule in general for sure. Yeah. And cooler. I'm sorry that the sarcasm bit is completely my fault. So sorry to cut you out of the loop. But the front end horse Discord and community is very into Eleventy as a framework. We just have like I don't really write Eleventy, but just happen to amass a bunch of people who are really into Eleventy. So it's just it's been and they're lovely folks. So yeah, that was just my little joke. But I totally get how that was confusing. So sorry about that. But yeah, well, lots of folks in chat make plugins for Eleventy or just write Eleventy a whole bunch. Yeah, it's cool. But yeah, and feel free to join the Discord if you would like. Cooler Me Purple. Awesome. So we touched on prefers reduced data. We just have a couple more to go. I
Yeah,
want to get them in before we hop off today. Prefers
sure.
contrast. That sounds like
Yeah,
it's going to be a lot like forced color. Is it?
exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So um, there used to be forced colors was a Windows only thing, and then on Mac you have dark mode, of course, which is
Right.
like kind of forced colors. But before
Right.
you had dark mode, you had something called inverted colors, which is exactly as it sounds. So it would just like turn your entire screen into a negative, um,
Yeah.
which works pretty well for most websites.
Yeah. It's not bad.
Um, but uh, a new thing is prefers contrast.
Okay.
And the neat thing is that forced colors doesn't start with prefers, but first contrast does start with prefers. And that means that for prefers contrast, we get to decide.
Oh, there's the
Essentially,
difference. Got
the
it.
choice between forced colors and prefers contrast is if a user has forced colors on, they're like, I don't want any of your stuff. Like, these are the colors I want, and I don't care if you have like the perfect red, it's gonna go. Whereas
Got it.
with prefers contrast, the user is like, I do want to see your design and your style and your choices. I just want it to have more contrast than it usually has. Or
Cool.
I want it to have less contrast than it usually has.
Got
Because
it.
there's also a prefers contrast less
Yeah.
option.
Interesting. And then custom is another. So this seems like
Custom
this is
is
like I'm getting into like, part of me is excited about this. Part of me is like, "Oh my goodness, I'm having a tough time enough with just the one color style
mm-hmm,
sheet. This
yeah.
sounds like I'm going to have a lot more to handle, right? And like wrap my head around
Yeah.
and keep track of."
Yeah, but like we already have kind of because we have like light and dark,
Right.
reduced, no reduced. We have forced colors.
Right.
Um, we have combinations of those
Yeah.
that you could potentially have to care about. So all this stuff is complex, and when it comes down to it, we all have finite time.
Yeah.
So you need to pick the things that make the biggest difference. Right now, that's not prefers contrast. Prefers contrast is supported in Safari, partially, Chrome, and it's either already here or coming very soon to Firefox.
Okay.
So it does have pretty good support, but there is not a whole lot like known about it yet. Like prefers contrast more. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that a user wants like full black or full white. Because it's like more. It's like
Yeah,
not
that's
or
interesting.
prefers contrast all of it. It's just like a little bit more, a little bit less. You know, what does that? How does that look?
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't really know. The specification is a little vague about that as well. Uh, what we
Huh.
do have is macOS has an increased contrast accessibility option. And if you turn that on, what they do is usually the macOS interface has like different shades for different areas. So
Okay.
like the top bar is slightly darker and then the buttons on them are slightly lighter and it's all very like subtle and nice, but not very contrasty. So that increased contrast button, what it does is it adds borders around every unique area.
Huh. Okay.
And that way, it's not so much about like text contrast, like what we usually think about when we think like accessibility and contrast,
Right.
but it's about like contrast between the different areas on your page. So you can quickly see like this belongs together here, this belongs together here, this is part of that.
Is it
So
making like
that is the
the affordances more obvious too? Is that part of it
yeah,
or
yeah.
okay?
So uh, think more Windows 95 and less Mac OS, whatever version we're at.
Less neomorphism kind of like just
Yeah.
gray blending into gray. Got it.
Hmm.
Cool. All right. Interesting. So it's something to be aware of. It's something that might come to all browsers in the future, but it's not something I should be necessarily spending a ton of time writing today. I think honestly,
Not
for
yet.
me, just
No.
hitting a dark mode on this site would go a long
Hmm.
way. It's kind of like my
Yeah, and I think
yeah.
for a lot of people that's the case. Uh, like it's hard enough to get one design like
Yeah,
done
true.
for you yourself personally, but also like get one design signed off for a customer,
Yeah.
uh, and then built and then QA'd, etc. It's almost twice the work adding a dark mode,
Yeah.
and that doesn't scale. So I do have my reservations on like how all these new media features going to be used? Because even
Got it.
reduced motion, which has been around the longest, it's hardly being used. And
Is that the
it's
case? Like, do we know how many people are using it, or like what percentage of sites that use
yeah,
it?
so there's the WebAIM uh, survey, which looks at the top 1 million websites every year. And I don't remember the numbers, but like very few sites use reduced motion.
Got it. Hey,
Um,
I mean,
so
I'm not surprised, but it's just
no,
disappointing.
I'm
Yeah,
not surprised either,
yeah,
and I'm not sure if there's like a right or like a trick or a solution. I mean, it's literally more work, um,
yeah.
and it's one of those things where like it's very nice if you get around to it, and I think if you had to choose, then reduced motion is more important than dark mode.
Got it. Yeah,
Because for people where like that really is an issue, they wouldn't like use dark mode, they would use forced colors. And they would just make
got
sure
it.
that every site everywhere is like has a black background.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so like someone can theoretically, if they know their way around these things, um, do this to the site and
Yeah.
operate it in a forced dark mode. It's not going to be the optimal experience, but
Mm-hmm.
it'll work in a dark mode. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Cool. Well, we only have a couple of minutes
So and
left. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're
then
gonna say
very quickly for prefers contrast less, that makes even less sense to me. Like who would
yeah,
want less contrast? Like,
yeah.
this text is great, but you know what would be better if I couldn't read it as well.
Just drop the opacity on thing. Oh well. So maybe it's, and I'm just throwing this out there, and you would know better because
Mm-hmm.
you've read the spec on these things. Um, like I hear that you shouldn't. It's actually not great for accessibility. If you have pure white on pure black or vice versa, like you want,
Yeah,
yeah. So like
yeah,
maybe that's it. And like if someone ships a pure
yeah.
white, pure
So
black site, and they can
that
fall
could
back to,
definitely help.
yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
got it.
So actually, in the new APCA color contrast checking, they advise you not to use pure white for a background, but
Okay,
like E4, E4, E4,
got it.
which is light gray,
Yeah.
uh, because otherwise it gets too contrasting.
Okay.
Um,
There's like a
so
Goldilocks zone to it.
that's hmm?
There's a
Yeah. There's
Goldilocks zone. It's just that like,
yeah,
all right,
there's
that's good.
like not enough contrast and too much contrast, and you want to
Yeah.
be in between. And
Interesting.
then I also think that, for example, you have like a very bright red background, like full background, and then right below it a very bright
Blue.
blue background.
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense to tone both of those down, especially
Cool.
where because they meet,
Got it.
and that line can be very annoying for certain people
Yeah, it
to see.
vibrates. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are things that you could tone down and play with.
Yeah, it
But
makes a lot of sense.
this is also like a little bit me conjecturing like what would be good for less contrast.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the feedback though. Like the I yeah, I do. It's stuff like this has been on the list for a while. I need to make it happen. So, um no, I genuinely appreciate it. Um before we go, do we want to touch on dark mode? And I know we're not going to be able to do a full dark mode revamp or anything, but were there
Hmm.
any things you wanted to talk about with that?
Um, so in my blog post, I have something called cheap dark mode,
Right.
um, and we can go through that.
Here it is.
Yeah.
Implementing a dark mode.
So you can just if you scroll down a little, there's CSS, and you can just copy that over.
Cool. Thank you for the follow. Welcome.
And then like let's turn the right pane into dark mode.
Got it.
And then
Cool.
let's walk through what this does. So first we set a background color on the root.
Whoa, hold on 1 sec. Sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
Jason and Ben just got done streaming, and they just came through. Jason, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome everybody. This is Front End Horse
Hey
Live. We were just
folks.
checking out all of the cool media queries that we don't hear about enough. Like we hear about width-based media queries, right? Like based on the viewport, but we don't hear enough about media queries like reduced motion or forced colors or reduced data. Did you even know about forced colors? Hold on, Kilian. If you don't mind, if I
Sure,
just take
sure.
a minute, chat. Do you know about forced colors? I didn't know this was a thing. You might, but apparently there's this forced colors setting that someone can put on to change all of your text to just like lock it in and get rid of all box sizing and everything else. Or sorry, not box sizing, box shadows, all that other stuff. And yeah, it is really interesting. And like you actually we learned some cool tricks where if you put an outline with transparent, that's going to show up in the forced colors mode because it's going to take that transparent outline and actually give it a color. But over here, it's not going to show up because it's transparent. We're not in forced colors mode. So like really cool tricks that someone who's using these settings to read your site a little bit better can use. We dug through a whole bunch of stuff, and we're just kind of finishing up the stream with a little bit of what Kilian here calls cheap dark mode. And Steph's here. Steph, good
Yeah.
to see you. So this is like kind of like a not a it's a quick hack kind of dark mode, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
we're not going in and doing a lot of nuanced changes. Let me turn off forced colors and turn on dark mode. Thank you for the follow, Pablo. Welcome in, everybody. Jason always has great streams, and I'm sure Ben was fantastic, right? Ben is a good friend here. I'm thrilled that he got to go on Jason again. He's incredible, and
Wow.
so I'm sure that stream went great. We actually wanted him here. Killian said before the show, it's a shame Ben's streaming at the exact same time. It would have been great to have him
Yeah.
here because of his accessibility chops. Ben just knows so much stuff. But yeah. Anyway, you were gonna kind of walk us through this, Killian, right?
Yeah. So cheap dark mode.
Yeah.
Like we said a moment ago, if you want to build a dark mode, it's essentially double the work. And you're not always going to be able to sell that. But it's still nice to have a dark mode.
Yeah.
So here we kind of fake it and we kind of try to make it work. And the way we do that is by using some CSS filters. And we first invert the entire website.
Got it.
And like if we do just that, so if you could remove that U rotate thing. Then
Oh.
like it's literally inverted. So it doesn't just invert the luminosity, so that the white to black and black to white, but also all the colors. Like if you can
Got
imagine a
it.
color wheel, like it goes from red to blue on the other
Yeah.
side of the color wheel. But that's not great. Front end horse it's red. It should be red, right?
Yeah.
So what we do is like we invert all the colors, but then there's another thing called U rotate, which
Got it.
doesn't invert, but it rotates along like the color wheel. And if we rotate 180 degrees, we essentially rotate back to the start.
Got it. So we first flip everything, and then just the hues we bring back
Hmm.
to where they were originally. That's
Yeah.
cool. And Austin Gill,
And
hey
then,
Austin, welcome. Um, yeah, great to have you here. I've seen your name pop up a bunch. I think you're speaking at a View conference soon, or you just did. I don't know. Anyway, great to have you here. And you were just recording something about this. That's awesome. Perfect though.
very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so we're back at the original U. Now, if you compare the the two reds in the two panes, then you can see that it's slightly different,
Yeah.
and that's the luminosity that got inverted. But
Oh,
it's like
okay.
it's generally fine,
Yeah.
right? It looks pretty good. Like on its own, you wouldn't notice that it's like a subtly different shade.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
so
funny.
that's pretty neat. But if you do just this, then all your images will look like some sort of nightmare inverted, but also still the same color. Like they will look very weird.
Got it.
So what we need to do there is we essentially just repeat the thing.
Just
So we
undo it.
invert it and we rotate it. So we invert again and we rotate again.
Got it. Yeah, because this is what we
And that
would
means
see
we
without
end
that
up
line.
at, yeah. So we end up at the place where the images started. So the images are just what they were at the beginning. And
They're
now
going
in
on
a
a bit
few
of a
lines of
journey,
code,
but they're arriving back home at the end of it, right?
yes.
Got it. That's
And so
cool.
this is pretty nice for like, 5 minutes of work,
Yeah.
and it's probably usable. It's not perfect,
Right.
um,
It's not
but
gorgeous either, but it's
no,
better than nothing. Like I've definitely installed plugins like this that do a similar
yeah,
thing, right? Because there's some sites where you're just like, oh my gosh, it's midnight and I need to work on this site. I need a dark
hmm
mode, and it's better than nothing. But
yeah.
yeah, it's
And then
there's not
like
going to be.
there's a few things we can actually add to this. Um, so for the images, like we really want to stay broad strokes here,
Right.
but for the images in dark mode, usually it's nice to make the images a little darker. So
Got
we
it.
can do like opacity, do it something with the opacity, or we can add the brightness filter. And I think it was Steph
I was just thinking
that
that.
shared this recently,
Yeah, Steph did
where you
tweet about
you
this.
lower the brightness, but you increase the saturation, and that means that causes the images to be less bright but not muddy. Because if you only lower the brightness, they also become a little bit like murky or muddy.
Got
But
it.
then if you bump the saturation back up, they still look vibrant, just darker.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I did see Steph. Steph, if you want to share that, if you're still here, yeah, Steph is still here. If you want to share that tweet, maybe, I would love to show that off. But yeah, it's awesome. And Austin Gill asks, did you already cover color scheme light dark?
No, we haven't. It's related to the media query. So color scheme light dark essentially tells your browser that either the entire site or a subsection of the site can be shown in light and dark. And this
Okay.
is useful for example, um, form elements like radio buttons, input elements, etc. Because they have default colors, and that needs to flip as well.
Interesting.
Um, we don't really have that here, and we also we invert stuff, so it kind of gets obscured in our dark mode.
Yeah. And this
But what
quick thing.
usually happens in a browser is that the input is just going to stay white, like the checkbox is just going to stay white. That's not great. You want like natively rendered but still dark mode
Got it.
uh, inputs, and that's what color scheme light dark does. Um,
Huh.
this is
Yeah.
now increasingly important because Chrome recently launched something called Auto Dark Mode,
Auto dark mode.
and yeah, and this specific article explains why you now need color scheme to deal with auto dark mode. So auto dark mode is essentially a more sophisticated version of the cheap dark mode built into Chrome.
Interesting.
So you can now tell Chrome like make this website dark mode for me, and it will do like more clever stuff than we do here.
Okay.
Um,
Got it.
and essentially like make a dark mode for any website that doesn't have one. And if you do that, there can be specific parts of your website that absolutely definitely shouldn't be in dark mode,
Okay.
because again, like colors are important. And you can then do a color scheme only light. So a color scheme is a CSS property, and then you can set it to the value only space light. And then that part won't get rendered in auto dark mode.
Huh. Okay.
So it's a super niche thing that
Yeah, it's starting to melt my
if you
brain a
need
little
it,
bit.
you need it. But
Interesting.
if you don't need it, you probably don't need to care about it.
Okay. That's
But
interesting
yeah,
though.
you can definitely put that link in the chat, because it's the
Cool.
web.dev article, because it's a good read on this topic specifically.
It's nice for flipping form inputs at least. Cool.
Yeah.
And Steph posted this. Yeah, that's nice. That's just like, yeah, having that.
Mm-hmm.
So in case chat is missing what we're talking about, you know, on white, this looks fine, but on dark mode, that's a bit intense. And so that would be a nicer alternative. Just, let's see what we're doing for that dark.
It's all the way at the top.
Ah, thank you. Steph's good with demos. I shouldn't have thought that she'd bury the lead. Yeah, filter, brightness, 0.8, and saturate 1.25. Really nice effect.
Mm-hmm.
Makes a lot of sense. System colors keywords are also pretty handy. I've got a so if I could derail super quick because now I have a question and everyone's here and I need your help because I've this might have just unlocked something for me where I'm like, oh, is that thing that I saw? So in here, if you haven't been using open props, I highly recommend it. But that in the CSS here, this Adam Argyle puts is that what this is?
Yeah.
Got it. So what's this doing? Because I didn't really understand.
It's essentially telling the browser that this element is a dark mode element.
Okay.
And so if you use input elements in that element,
Okay.
they're usually rendered like light. Like a checkbox will have like a white background, and a radio button will have a white background as well. And this will essentially tell the browser that no, for this part of the page,
Right.
I want dark mode
Got
uh,
it.
input elements, even if you don't use like the media query color scheme.
Right. Okay. So like if I go in and comment these out because I think that's what's setting it. So like dark and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they stayed white. Cool. Okay, I get this now. That's really neat. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and so you can also overwrite these input elements with your own colors, of course.
Got it.
They're just CSS. But this is essentially telling the browser, like, I want the regular styling, just the dark version of it.
Okay, cool. Cool. This is cool. Yeah. It's exciting. I feel like I learn so much every time you come on, Killian, and I don't know. I just like it becomes one of those things where I'm like, I know nothing about what's happening on the web these days, and it's exciting. It's just like, oh my goodness, there's
Yeah,
so much more to
there's a lot
learn.
happening.
It's great. I'm just thrilled. Like I was using this. I was copying and pasting this code, not really knowing what this did. But
Hmm.
that's so cool. Thank you so much for kind of illuminating me on that and on everything else that we covered
Nice.
today. We got through a bunch of stuff and had a whole bunch of fantastic people hanging out with us. Chat, thank you so much for coming through. We have, just before we start to wrap up here, I just want to say we've got a really fun site coming up. We got a really fun show coming up with our friend Nate Moore. We have I don't know if I'm going to describe it well, so I'm just going to read it because I feel like I'm going to screw it up. A new tool for building design systems called Token CSS. This is the grand premiere of Token CSS, as far as I know.
Whoa.
So we're getting to see this thing for the first time. Nate's been working on it. Also chat about design token methodology, recent progress on the design tokens community group specification, and what the future plans for token CSS are. So I'm super excited to learn a new way to just use design tokens, because with open props, I've been loving that. But like I'm open. I'm in an open relationship with design systems. I'm looking forward to all of this. We also have our friend Varun and Cassie coming on. We've got lots of great shows coming up. So if you're not already following, please follow. And Kilian, do you want to plug? And good question from Austin. Let's make sure we take that. Do you want to plug
Sure.
anything besides the fantastic browser that we use today, Polypane? Or do you just want to
Um,
talk more about it?
I can plug some other stuff as well.
Awesome.
But first, yes, there is performance concerns with those filters.
Cool.
Like the more complex your page is, the more work your browser has to do for a filter. Um, so yeah, there's a performance concern that you should keep in mind. Like it'll work fine in most browsers for most websites, but if you have like a bunch of canvas elements or a bunch of videos or whatever, that can, you can notice your fans spinning up. And that's again why it's like cheap dark mode and not perfect dark mode.
Got it. Cool. Oh wait.
Um,
The filters. Oh, got it. Okay. I misunderstood the question. You did not, though. I thought it was performance concerns with color scheme dark, but
oh,
no,
yeah, yeah.
that makes a lot more sense. Cool.
Mhm.
Yeah. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so if people want to get started with design tokens before that very awesome sounding stream,
Yeah.
you can go to superposition.design.
Right. Oh, let me hold on. Also, we had you on to make that fun Chrome plugin.
Yeah, that was fun as well.
Yeah, it's a great time.
So superposition is another desktop application that I built that you can open a page in. It will go through the entire page and all your CSS and figure out what colors you're using and what typography, which spacing, which box shadows, which images, etc. And then you can use them directly in Adobe XD and Figma.
Cool.
Or you can export them to CSS or
JavaScript. It looks like
JavaScript
Sass. Yeah.
or Android
Yeah. Whatever
XML
that would be.
something. Um,
Cool.
and so you can get started like with design tokens even if you don't have a system set up, which is like what most people have.
Yeah.
And I have been keeping an eye on the design tokens working group, and I would love to add other exports. So I'll definitely be checking the stream
Awesome.
for that.
Awesome.
So this app is free. You can download it for Mac, Windows, and Linux,
Super
and it's
cool.
just a really nice way to get started with design systems if you
Nice.
haven't yet.
All right. Cool.
And then the other tool that I've built is called fixally.com, and Ally is spelled the A11Y, and
Hyphen or
just
no?
one word, no hyphen.
Cool. Nice. Yes. I'm.
So this is a browser extension for all those browsers and maybe someday for Safari as well, but building Safari extensions is a pain in the butt, so I haven't
You've got a
got
lot on your
around to
plate.
that yet. But like this will help you improve contrast on sites that don't have enough contrast.
Cool.
Um, and you can set like I want this amount of contrast for small text, this amount of contrast for large text, and it will just fix sites as you browse.
Got it.
So this is for sites that don't have a prefers contrast,
Okay.
and for people that do want more contrast but don't want forced colors, because forced colors is like the blunt hammer, like get rid of everything and have it my way.
Right.
And this is like it's in between.
Cool. This is nice. And this is a cool demo here of just, yeah, showing it off. That's great. So yeah, if I have trouble with low contrast websites, this looks like a great tool for that sort of thing. Very cool. And just to come back to it, because we definitely had some new people join us at the end there. Kilian makes this fantastic browser that's specifically for web developers and has a ton of features. We just scraped the surface, but I think the feature that people most kind of see and go, wow, how do you get that is the different uh, panes, right? Like that's the
Mm-hmm.
name, right? The whole
Yeah.
polypane thing is that you get to see and scroll through lots of different sizes all at once and see how responsive your site is, and you can design or rather code out your site and
Mm-hmm.
seeing, oh right, it does not look right there. I need to go fix that and so on. But it's also got a bunch of accessibility features, like tons of stuff. To just take a look through the feature list here, and you'll be spending the rest of your afternoon there. Awesome app. Kilian makes some wonderful stuff and is so deeply knowledgeable. It's always great to have you in the Discord to help us out with stuff and give us advice, and to have you on the stream, man. It's always a pleasure. Always coming and teaching
Likewise.
us lots and stuff. And I agree with Austin. Austin says Kilian is amazing. I agree. So
Thank you.
yeah, thank you for hanging out with us. Was there anything else before we find someone else to raid?
No. Like,
Cool.
again, everyone in the stream that isn't in Discord yet, you should all join.
All
It's
right.
amazing.
Appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, and yeah, we've got some wonderful folks in there. Lots of them are in chat right now, but you are welcome to come by, hang out, and yeah, it's always a good time. But for now, hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you later, buddy. Bye.
Bye bye.